All right. Well, how is everybody? It helps to unmute when you're on Zoom, right? When you start talking. Happy Monday. It is industry update. It is a really special day. We have a new co-host, Miss Kelly Chancy. How are you? We can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I unmuted myself, so I'm doing fantastic. How are you all? Does that work?
That works. So Kelly is our new team leader in the Keller Williams Buckhead office, and this is your first industry update co-hosting with me. I'm excited. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I am not a rookie to the industry. I'm just a rookie to the team leader role. I've been selling real estate. Gosh, I've been licensed 17 years, which is now like a really long time. And you feel old when you say stuff north of 10 years. So, but I lived through many markets, so I have that to bring. And I'm actually looking forward to the market we're walking into.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump in. We always just kind of start with the numbers. Let me pop these up here. So let's just run through these real quick. So Fulton County, we've got 860 active listings, which I see that as a huge plus right now, with 860 potential properties to go out there and sell. We went pending on 345 over the last 7 days. And if you kind of look across the board, that's still a healthy number in Fulton County. And when we drop down here to closing, with 474 closings in Fulton County over the last 7 days, it's a big number. And, you know, we're talking shift, and is the economy changing, and is demand changing? It's kind of hard to have that conversation when we closed 474 houses last 7 days. However, I like to kind of average a 2-week period. So maybe over the 2 weeks with the holiday, we're probably in line with what we've been doing. But man, there's still houses selling out there, certainly in Fulton County here. If we jump over to DeKalb County, 447 active, 503 active, 203 pending, 288 closings in DeKalb County. Like I said, I'm not really setting ourselves up for a great conversation around the market shifting, but I'm not complaining. I don't know if anybody else is. And likewise in Cobb County, I mean, 589 active properties, 239, if you just kind of look across, pretty healthy numbers, 306 closings. That's the most closings since, well, I see Matt on here, since early May or middle of May. So I'll take it right now. We're going to, what do they call it? Make hay while the sun is shining, right?
Right.
Kelly, what's your perspective on these numbers?
Yeah. So I'll have like 2 or 3 takes on it. First, I feel like the slight dip that happened in June, that was when the interest rate skyrocketed up to that 6.5%. They backed off a little bit. Not to say they aren't still increasing, because they are, and they're projected to increase some more. So I feel we have now had to do a little quick readjusting to the new norm of interest rates. And so therefore, those who were smart got ahead of it, readjusted, and they went under contract. Now they're closing. You always 4th of July weekend, everyone's out of town, we're celebrating. So that was obviously why that's a little bit slower at that, the week of this July 11th. The other thing is, and if I may, I'll switch the dialogue around. I feel like so often, like, you have 2 sellers out there. You have this seller that thinks the market's crashing, and then I'm like, so therefore I got to be like really prepared to, you know, price really low. And then you still have the sellers out there that are like, you know what, it's still the market. Maybe it's not 32 offers, but the market is 15th. And truthfully, I think we're in the middle and of those 2 perspectives, you know. So it's like, you know, I love selling homes. I love selling real estate. So I don't make this statement because I love selling homes. But the statement I actually been telling clients and agents now is, it's rare you find a market where I could honestly say it's a great time to be a seller and a great time to be a buyer. And it's because we are seeing inventory creeping up. it's still a great time to be a seller because prices have so increased over the years that if you've owned your home, certainly 2020 and later, or older, I should say, you even in 2021 for that matter, you have a lot of equity in your house. As a buyer, you don't have to remove everything in order to buy. You actually have an opportunity to buy right now because of the slightly increased enlist fees. And most importantly, you still want to do it now because interest rates are still projected to go up. And so it's kind of a rare moment that I think it's good to be both. You know, and I think we have a little bit of time.
Find it on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put it on my, if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I put it on my story today. There was a clip that Dave Ramsey had put out there. And I agree with some of his philosophy and some of his philosophy I disagree with, but neither here nor there. I thought his perspective was very simple and profound. And his comment was, you know, should I buy a house now or should I wait 5 years? And he said, here's the truth. No matter what you think, prices are going up. Now, they're not going to go up like they were going up, but they're going to go up at a historically natural trend. So if you wait 5 years to buy a house, you're going to pay all the appreciation that's going to happen over the next 5 years for that same piece of property that you would pay today. And yes, you're going to pay more in an interest rate today, but we all kind of understand that interest rate is at some point in time going to come back down and you can refinance it. So I think it was Sean Rawls that said, date the rate or marry the house, right? And so the opportunity of, or the lost opportunity of waiting to buy real estate is you're going to lose the appreciation of a real appreciating asset if you just get nervous and wait to buy 5 years later. And the other thing that I thought was really profound that he said was, he said, you know, we're used to people buying real estate at their max value, meaning their max debt to income ratio a lender will lend them money on. And the truth is, if people will actually buy at a fair debt to income ratio for their life, they'll be just fine. And instead of maxing their life out just to get into a house, and I think that's where professional consultation comes in, is helping people understand, like, hey, listen, you might have been looking at $350,000 first time home buyer home a year ago, and maybe we need to be looking at a $300,000 house today, but you're still buying an appreciating asset. You're still getting in the game of wealth building and accumulating wealth. And that's more important than the emotional, hey, maybe I didn't get the house that I originally wanted. But the encouragement from a professional is, hey, let's get you in the game. We can move you up later. We can refinance you later. But if you choose not to be in the game, what kind of opportunity loss do the next 5 years create in your life, right? And I thought he said it really, really simple in that clip, if you want to go take a look at it. But I don't know. I think perspective-wise, I'm going to give my perspective and then I'll throw the ball to you, Kelly. Here's what I know. The inflation came in at 9.1%. I don't know that I fully believe it, but the government says they were surprised by that. However, here's what I know about that. They're going to be aggressive and they're going to do whatever they can to slow demand down so that they can feel like they can get our economy to a healthier place. And an analogy that a really smart person gave recently was, it was about 10 years ago, there was a huge forest fire in Yellowstone. But prior to, and the fire was so great that the firefighters couldn't get it under control. But previous to that, they had been in the habit of every time there was a little fire, they'd put it out. Well, what happened as a consequence of that is all the undergrowth in that forest kept building up and building up and building up, so that when the big fire happened, it just fueled a huge fire that they couldn't put out. Well, if you think of that analogy in the economy, sometimes we need a little correction to keep our economy healthy. And I think that's what's about to happen is we're going to have a little bit of a correction just so that we actually live and sustain in a very healthy economy in the long run. Because if we don't, we're going to have a recession that felt like 2008 and 2009 because we just kind of put it off. And then there was this big fire or big recession where I think we're going to experience a moderate little slowdown here probably over the next 18 months. But if you really get the wide perspective around it, it's really healthy for our industry for us to have a little bit of a correction right now so that we can sustain wealth long-term in real estate. And my commitment on these calls is not to fluff it, right? Like, I hope that we're not putting fear, we're not causing people to worry. I want you to understand, because when you understand, I think it takes those things out of your emotional state. But just know, like, there's an expectation, if we're not already in a recession, which I believe we are, we're gonna be. And that doesn't mean you can't thrive. It just means you have to understand what market we're in, so you're in the game and know how to navigate it. My take, Kelly, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I do agree that the government is doing whatever they can to kind of hedge it. Well, I won't say everything. They're doing what they know to do to hedge against the inflation with the interest rates. So with that, I think when we talk to our clients, exactly how you stated it about the purpose of this call, we need to say the same way. Just be direct, going, look, I'm not here to sugarcoat or puff up anything. I just want to be really straightforward. And that's where I feel like it's like we always feel like we have to pit one side of the buyers against the sellers or sellers against buyers. So that's where I go, honestly, depending upon like your needs, it is actually still a great time to sell, still a great time to buy, because interest rates will increase, because that's what the Fed has promised us to do the next time they go and they meet. So there's an urgency for that buyer now. For the sellers, we have had record appreciation. If you participate in that, it's still a great time to sell. You can walk away and have a lot of equity. Maybe you don't take all that money you made in the sale of your home. Maybe you take a good portion of it, buy your next home, and keep that additional cash you have, use it to reinvest maybe in another property or find another financial opportunity, or just keep it for your own rainy day if you want to hedge, kind of cushion yourself if you are concerned of any kind of recessions. But I think we just need to say it like that. Just be very direct and just go, look, I'm not telling you this because I just want to sell a house. I truly believe it. And I think the other thing is there is opportunity for people who I think when it comes to selling, we're not going to have probably a lot of appraisal issues for the next few months because we just went through a lot of really great sales. So those concerns, and even for a buyer, should be subsided. But I've talked to own clients who have had so much equity built up in their home that capital gains tax is a reality for them. They would have appreciated enough where $250 as a single person or $500 as a couple, that they are getting close to that line, and they may want to consider, is this a time for you to sell and go reinvest your money elsewhere or do something different? Because that, like, we've been having those type of conversations around equity too.
Yeah. I'd like to give a perspective a little bit around this, in the sense of the difference between an amateur and a professional. And I'll tell you a little bit about a journey I went through as a leader and show you how it relates to an agent. When I was a new leader, I only wanted to talk about all the numbers we were crushing. And I would kind of hide the numbers that we weren't really succeeding on, because I thought, I just got to show everybody where we're winning and not really bring to attention where we might have opportunity in the past. And I learned in my leadership journey, like, that's not what people really want. They want you to be real and talk through all of it and be professional around the perspective. And then we learn from that conversation. And that's how a professional approaches things. In terms of an agent, you could take the perspective of trying to only talk the fluff, only talk the fluff to a seller, only talk the fluff to a buyer. And I'm just telling you, that is an amateur way of presenting yourself. If you're a professional, you talk the whole story and give them wise counsel and help them make a great decision. And it's leveling up in how you present yourself and how you present information. And people, I promise you, will gravitate more to you if you're real with them than trying to just fluff it. And we've all done that. It's a journey, but I just wanted to give you that perspective. All that being said, here we showed numbers, Kelly, and they're like, hey, we're on fire. The market's awesome. Let's talk about shift. Here's a pretty cool article that I found that says, here's the 5 truths that every agent should know about shifting markets. And I think these are quite profound. The first one is people want to deny a change is happening. I'm telling you, we have agents in our organization that don't believe we're going into a shift, and it's a mistake. Like, you don't want to deny, and this is a little bit like just calling the fluff, right? Like, let's call it what it is and then go win. But at the end of the day, denying the reality of where you're at is hurting yourself, and it hurts your clients. So I think that's really important. Anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, this is where we get really excited in good markets so we track our GCI when we should always be tracking our number of transactions and how many people we're adding to our database. So I agree. If we track transactions and add a database, we'll probably be see some changes perhaps, but you're right. You have to accept reality in order to make the pivot and shift that we need to.
Yeah, you can't find the opportunity if you don't understand where you are today, right? Number 2 is ego is going to kill a lot of businesses. Take this in concept of a seller. A seller's going to say, hey, my neighbor's house sold for blank. I expect to get the same amount of money. And that conversation alone is going to hurt their opportunity of actually getting their house sold and still getting a good price, right? Real estate agents, you know, everybody has some level of ego in our persona, and that's natural, but just don't let your ego get in the way of you finding your way forward to thriving. And I made mention of this in some of the shift videos. So like, hey, the superpower of most top agents is they're great at lead generating and they're great at lead converting. And sometimes you have to get back into that to find your way to thrive. Yet the ego says, oh, I graduated from that. I don't need to do that anymore. And sometimes we have to take a step back to find our way forward, right?
Or they don't want to accept. Ego gets in the way when you don't want to accept that sometimes you just miss it. You priced it wrong. You just missed it, and you didn't correct quickly enough. And where I think that's where we have to let go of the ego. If we just missed it, we got to correct quickly, and most importantly, not be blaming, oh, it's the market, or we should have listed 6 months ago, and all these other things. Let's accept where we are and make quick adjustments.
Yeah. Third one is the influence around you will be amplified. Do you have any comments on that one?
Yes, hang out with the agents in the office that are succeeding. You know, that's the ones you need to be around, not the ones that have, everybody has kind of a sad story that happened. So hang around those that are actually moving forward in business.
You know, it's just simply, if I'm in conversations with agents that are actually selling real estate, that's very influential to me and my persona. But if I find myself in conversations that are like, hey, I put a house on the market and it hadn't shown in 3 days, I'm freaking out. That's not necessarily a bad conversation. Just don't highlight those conversations so much in your life, where highlight the conversations around the people that are finding their way to success, because that'll amplify your life. It's contagious, right? Number 4 is, in times of change, there's a flight to safety. What I'd put on this is, if somebody gets emotional, they're going to lose 9 times out of 10. And agents do this, sellers do this, buyers have done this. They lose that emotional poise in their life, and they typically, when you do that, you tend to find yourself making a bad decision. Find your way to logic, dive into the data, find the interpretation, and let the data guide you, not your emotional state. Or encourage your sellers, encourage your buyers to do the same thing. Say, let's look at what the market's telling us and make our decision based on what the market's telling us, not on the emotional state of what you wanted for your house, or what you could have bought a year ago versus what you can buy today. Or better yet, Kelly, I think the one that's on everybody's mind right now, I don't want to pay a 6% interest rate because a year ago I could have paid 3%. And that's an emotional thing. And yet it's safe to go, I'm not going to buy because the rate got a little higher than I expected. But you're actually making an emotional decision based on fear or safety that's going to keep you from building wealth over the next 5 years of your life. Right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And the sentence I'm just gonna, you can scroll up, but the sentence it said was like, the value of being associated with a trustworthy brand, both your company and your personal brand, increases dramatically. So we have a great brand, we have a great company, and we just need to show our value right there. Yes.
Yep.
They will flock to that in times of change.
Yep. And I'll say it this way, the value of the brand you bring to the table and the value of you as a real estate professional is going up in the consumer's mind. Where when the market is really good and somebody can slap a house on the market and get 50 offers in 24 hours, they don't value us as professionals as much because they don't think we did much. But when the market starts to change a little bit, they actually value us more, and it gives us that opportunity to step into that conversation. The fifth one is players are separated from the pretenders. And this spoke a little bit to what I was talking about earlier, but basically it's the difference between professionals and amateurs. You showing up to this call and getting the dialogue that Kelly's sharing or the dialogue that I'm sharing and translating that in your words back out there in the field is moving you towards more of a professional versus the people that maybe choose not to be on this call and live in, I'll call it fluff land, where, oh, everything's great, the sky's always shining, it never rains, that kind of persona. They just haven't leveled up into the professional part of our industry, which we're just encouraging everybody to do. Anything you'd add to that?
This also goes to the knowing your scripts and dialogues around the, certainly the market, but, individual scenarios. Like I'll tell a quick story. Actually, a neighbor of mine listed their home. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like an incredibly high price. It's not even looking that great. And when I talked with the neighbor, like no showings, no this, no, like nobody came to the open house. And so that agent just quickly went and blamed the market versus going back to the ego thing of saying, you know what, I just gave him whatever the guy wanted to list it, that's what he listed it for. And this is going back to thinking, where's opportunity? I think we'll start to see in a handful of months expired from all these amateurs and pretenders that like just said, let's just price it whatever, never stage it, don't even do a little repair. And then it's the real professionals that are going to be able to separate from these folks. And going to point number 4, I believe it was, being flocked back to us as professionals. And I agree. These stats and staying plugged in is going to be crucial as we make this little bit of change.
Going forward. This article did vindicate me. I used to always make the statement that said, when the tide goes out, we always know who's skinny dipping. And I never knew it was Warren Buffett. So I feel super vindicated that was a Warren Buffett. So we'll move on past that. I want to check in on something. You made comment around expireds and expired 8. So in Fulton County, there are 30 expired listings. Not a lot yet, but keep your eye on this number. Obviously, at the end of the month, that number spikes because everybody makes their listings expire at the end of the month. But we haven't seen it take off yet. but I think you're right. I think we're going to see this number grow. If I just run through DeKalb County at 18, yep, 18 expired, 29 withdrawn. Cobb County had 14 and 32 withdrawn.
I agree. It's not like huge now, but what I think is separating the professionals from the amateurs that did not know how to have the proper pricing conversation, the proper staging, condition conversation, the traditional way we always sold housing before the pandemic, where we had to worry about price, condition, and availability as a seller. I see that those sellers will become frustrated because they did experience 6 months ago a neighbor that only sold it in a weekend. Now they're having to sit on the market for a month or a month and a half, that they would be looking for someone else.
100%. So, I'm going to run through these real quick, and then Mika wants you to expand around the capital gains real quick. So the other headlines are foreclosures start, bank repossessions tick closer to pre-pandemic levels. I still find this interesting because of the price appreciation over the last couple of years, but I think the opportunity here is going to start to come into play, just like expired listings. Atlanta home sellers still in control, but buyers gain some leverage. I do think a lot of buyers are thinking their opportunity is now, and to some it is, and to some it's still not. It's still a seller's market in most neighborhoods. So this is where they need your guidance. And then the last one was Atlanta's housing market cooled in June, summer blip or the start of a new trend. I'll go on record and say, I think we're going to start to slow down a little bit, guys, and you're going to feel it. If you haven't already. Do I think we're going to come to a screeching halt? No, and I can't even show you in numbers yet. We're still on fire, but all indicators say it's going to slow a little bit, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. As I said, we need a little bit of a correction to have a healthy economy in the future. But Kelly, you were talking about capital gains, and there was a question in the chat around, can you expand on that? So I'll give you the last 2 minutes to expand on that.
Okay. First, remember we have seasonality. We're back to 2018, 2019 seasonality, where we always have this end of July, early August slowdown because of the school year. So that's seasonality. We're getting back to normal seasonality, I believe. Capital gains, if you truly have keep up with your database, I recommend you do a market analysis on all of your, certainly your A-list clients. And if your clients have been in their property long enough, some areas appreciated so quickly, like I will speak to, because I'm in the Buckhead office, I'll speak to the Buckhead, the High Point, the Brookhaven, Sandy Springs, some of the in-town neighborhoods market, like they literally were at that 18 to 22 to 24% year over year. And if they held on to it for years prior to that, if they get to, as a single person, tax laws right now are 250 in from what they purchased and what they put into the home, and then what they sell for minus their expensive, if that's around 250, or even married couples or file jointly 500, you can be subject to capital gains if you sell and you make more than that. So I have a particular person that was a past client that, or current, I guess, that same thing. I mean, they held it long enough, and they're in areas that were appreciating at 22, 24, 25%. That appreciation got them is getting them really close to 500,000. And so it's a great time to sell. Go buy something else. Keep a little change in your pocket, and they can, start maybe find a primary residence, and then keep a little change, and let's go buy an investment property.
Yeah, even if you reinvest, it was a comment in the chat, right? Yes, even if you reinvest it in another home, because
that is correct.
Not a 1031 exchange.
It depends upon your income bracket too. It's like 15 or 20% is your capital gains, which is a lot. And you think about interest rates at 6% or 6.5%. Well, 15 is a lot more than 6 or 6.5. And I get to spread that over 30 years versus paying it all out next year's tax bill.
There you go. Well, the benefit of being live is you can see the joke in the chat, but we're not going to put it live on the recording. So there you go. All right.
Oh, so now I got to go look.
Thanks so much. You did great on your first industry update. There's your update, guys. Happy Monday.